Hi, I'm Cornelius Raymond Jr. from Little Rock, Arkansas, where I'm the CEO of Arkansas Reps, where we believe housing is treatment in our efforts to decrease new HIV infections across the state. I'm here to recruit you.
Hi, and welcome to The Recruiters. I'm former New York State Senator Tom Duane. You know, I spent many years as an elected official. Before that, I was an activist, and I'm an activist now, but I spent many years as a public service getting paid to help our city and to help our state. And I learned a lot about how to get things done. And here on The Recruiters, we are here to serve. And by that, I mean we're going to share with you some of the different strategies we have for how you can be of service to our city, our state, and our world, because, oh my gosh, there's a lot that needs fixing. And you know this, a lot of people in communities that we care about are struggling. So today we're going to hear from inspiring people who will show us what it means to be of service, because this is The Recruiters, and we are recruiting you.
I'm Charles Sanchez, and it's time to rally. I love trans folks. I think they're miraculous, like angels. Every trans person that I've ever met is warm-hearted and welcoming. I'm sure there are a few trans assholes, but I haven't met them yet. Trans people have had to fight like hell to be who they are, their authentic selves. Them being that strong and fabulous gives me permission to be strong and fabulous for myself. According to a 2022 study by the Williams Institute at UCLA School of Law, there are over 1.6 million human beings in the United States who identify as transgender or gender nonconforming. Nearly 1 in 5 transgender people in the U.S. are between the ages of 13 and 17. Their rights, their health care, and their safety are being viciously snatched away from them, leaving the trans community more vulnerable than ever. Here are a few things that you can do to be a fancy, fabulous trans ally. Be outspoken. Make sure your friends and family know that you support trans rights and protections and that anti-trans jokes are not funny. And make sure your trans friends know that you support them no matter what. Use your pronouns when you're introducing yourself and your email signature on your social media platforms. You using your pronouns gives permission for others to do the same. Find out about laws that protect trans folks and proposed bills that may leave trans folks vulnerable. Contact your representatives and tell them that trans people are a vital part of our community and deserve the same rights and protections as every other person in America. Push for inclusivity and support rather than tolerance. Remember, it's not about being a perfect ally. I'm always worried that I'm going to accidentally use the wrong pronoun or something. But another thing about trans people, as long as your heart's in the right place and there's no malicious intent, they're generous with forgiveness, like angels should be.
We have a really good guest. Jeremiah Johnson has been the executive director of Prep for All since November of 22, and he's led the organization's fight for a national PrEP program. And you've been building on a proposal for PrEP financing, very important, and delivery, not just financing, but then using it. And most recently, you've overseen the activities for the Save HIV funding campaign, an initiative to combat recent efforts to undermine, undermine essential federal HIV funding. Right. So I wanted to just put on the record 2 important things for you to remember. PrepForAll.org and SaveHIVFunding.org. What's the difference?
Well, Prep for All is the organization and the one that we have been promoting equitable PrEP access through since 2018. SaveHIVfunding.org is the recent campaign that's been fighting not just this year's attacks on HIV funding, but we've had a couple years since House Republicans started calling for massive cuts to funding.
This horrendous Congress we have that follows this horrendous president's decrees, they tried to do everything to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, right? But they were not successful. However,
the big betrayal of a bill just passed, so they're coming for your Medicaid.
Medicaid, it's the foundation for everything. So how do you get up in the morning?
I'm a big subscriber to a day at a time, and just remembering, that we're going to lose some battles. The fact of the matter is that we have real significant problems that we're facing. I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of great ACT UP alums. Peter Staley's on my board.
I was just a member, not a leader, just a body.
But to be there, and the thing I'm always reminded of is that there was a lot of joy in ACT UP, and that was extremely important for activism. So, while we need to take everything seriously right now, if you're not connecting with people and having some fun with your activism, then they're already winning.
It's so interesting because I always say, but we have to have some joy too.
Yeah.
We can't keep going if there's not a little bit of joy.
100%.
I do have a question that I wanted to ask you earlier.
Sure.
Jeremiah. How'd you get the name Jeremiah?
For those who remember 70s movies, they'll be thinking of Jeremiah Johnson, the 1972 Robert Redford flick. I was born in Colorado, so it's about a mountain man. My father, he says that he just always liked the name Jeremiah, but he owned the movie, he watched it compulsively, so I think he's a bit of a liar. I think I was named after the movie, but that's how I got my name.
It's a great name. I live in New York City. I have access to a lot of information. I have access to good health care. I actually have insurance. I don't live in Mississippi. I don't live in Wyoming.
Right.
What are you doing about Mississippi, Wyoming, South Carolina? I mean, this is where the really brave people are too, and they need support. So how do you do that?
There was a major attack, by the government in Mississippi against some CBOs recently. It's essential that national advocates, the advocates that are in communities like New York that have more resources, that we're coming together. And that's a big reason why we have been having weekly calls with national advocates, inviting local and state advocates to those conversations as part of the Save HIV funding campaign. We've got the website up so that people can join from all over the country, because we need to be sharing that information and hearing where can we show up, how can we help out. And importantly, this is why we've got to fight back on those federal funding streams, because a lot of things like CDC HIV prevention, those dollars go directly from CDC to the states for HIV prevention. So it's essentially a cut to state budgets.
Yes, but you are recruiting recruiters who are already recruiting and helping them to recruit even more, right? That's what's going on.
We need that exponential factor.
I'm a white guy. I have a certain kind of insurance.
Right.
I have access to it. People of color do not have the same kind of access. People that use public health care in poor places don't have the same kind of access. So how do you get to them?
I mean, the disparities are massive. The numbers are shifting a bit right now, but the previous estimate by the CDC was that, when we were getting PrEP to nearly all of the white individuals who are in need of access. We were only getting it to about 10% of black individuals, 23% of Latinx individuals, cisgender women, black women in particular need access.
Yes.
We're not getting it to people who inject drugs, people who use drugs. There was an estimate that less than 1% of insured individuals. We have a long way to go, and it's going to get further, because if we're losing Medicaid coverage, which is the #1 coverage provider for people living with HIV in the U.S.
Yes.
By the way, with everything that's going on, we may see those ADAP lists again. This is going to strain state budgets. So we've got to hold the line as much as we can.
Yes.
We're going to lose some battles, but we can't let it get all swept away. Beyond that, we've been calling for a national PrEP program for underinsured populations to fill in those gaps. And so we're going to keep fighting for that. even once we get out of the current crisis.
We want to increase participation by people of color and more women of color, white women, cisgender women. I mean, I find a lot of white men who say, well, they have to do it. They have to do it. And I'm like, no, we've caused the problem. Like, if they want to help us, okay. But it's up to us to do the to be welcoming, to do the outreach, to make people want to be a part of this, right?
At the end of the day, it needs to be a shared partnership between all of us. The meaningful involvement of marginalized communities, in positions of leadership in PrEP access, absolutely essential. But we need, independent advocacy that brings all of our strengths together so that we can collectively have an impact for all communities. And that includes making sure that those of us who have privilege are bringing that to the table in partnership with people from other communities.
I mean, we should be using the institutional Democratic Party to be, pushing this message, right? Because it's multicultural. But they're not. So they just could not be less interested. And people in their districts are dying, It's terrible.
Yeah.
Do you have any Republicans? Have you reached any Republicans that, know what you're talking about?
The challenge is the people who will come forward publicly versus when you're talking with, their staff, talking with them directly. I think that the needle has moved, and I don't think that we've completely lost that bipartisanship that we've seen with HIV historically. But we do sometimes have some public commentary, notably Mike Lawler, representative here in New York, came out in support of CDC HIV prevention funding. When we're talking about recruiting people participating, we're also recruiting funders. We're recruiting particular, large grassroots campaigns are great. We need large donors to be showing up for these campaigns. We need major foundations, the ones that have supported our movement in the past. We need you right now more than ever.
I would get to meet people that ordinarily I would never get to meet, because when you call and say, could I have coffee or lunch with some big name, it would be weird if you just, as a fan or something, but they know what's happening. They know they're gonna get hit up, and so you get to meet people.
That's true.
And they want to give. You just have to ask. They're good to go.
Sometimes you get into this, as though I'm asking for charity, but you're right. There are people that they want to support us. They're looking for something that they can do right now, and you're just offering an option to them. And, it's really a service in its own way.
And I think almost every family has someone living with HIV, or they know someone close to them is living with HIV.
I've been living openly about my HIV status, for most of the time. Thank you.
We're in the same team.
It means a lot, and I sometimes forget about it, and we'll still get comments from people saying how much it means to them to hear somebody talking out loud about, not just living with HIV, but thriving with it and being a real leader in advocacy around it. It's a kind of empowerment that it means a lot to people.
Because, PrEP is not just like an aspirin. It's like a powerful thing. It's
It's all medications. Even if you look at ibuprofen, there are potential side effects with it and things like that. But it's a very safe medication, very well tested. It is a relationship with the medical system that's a bit different. There are some who say it should be over the counter, though. But for those conversations to move forward, we still need that funding. They actually had their NIH funding, a lot of questions about that recently, so hopefully it continues. For stigmatized medications in particular, we put a lot of unnecessary hurdles in the way. And when you add to that the enormous cost and the meddling of a lot of pharmaceutical companies around it, it gets really complicated really quickly.
If you take PrEP, right? If you inject something, if you use a condom, it makes you stop and think for a moment about what's going on, right? I mean, it's every time it's educational, and it's life and death, decisions you're making.
It is an elevated sense of responsibility for your health. And the reality is that human beings just need choices when it comes to all sorts of different health options. It's just the nature of being human. PrEP is an important tool in our arsenal that everyone needs access to.
Some places where you need to get the word out, where it's difficult to get the word out, do you have support from religious leaders?
Within the U.S., we will sometimes run into religious leaders who want to work with us, particularly from communities of color that are interested in getting things out. Not the robust partnership that I think you may find sometimes in other circumstances. You will sometimes find some partnerships in the global space, but not as much here.
So those of you who are very involved with the faith, start advocating there. And even if it's in New York, the ripple effect to other places will be incredibly important.
I know a great many people who are religious who really support our work, but don't think that this is a battle for them. Meanwhile, we just had to fight incredibly hard to defeat a Supreme Court case brought by a religiously run Christian business out of Texas, fighting to avoid having to cover PrEP because they thought that it led to homosexuality. That turned into an overall attack on preventive health care for 150 million Americans. So, you may think that this isn't your fight, but that's a prime example where an attack on a certain subset that's marginalized
they come
gets
in
weaponized.
for everyone.
It metastasizes.
The battle starts at the very beginning. What about other AIDS organizations? Do you work well with others?
Even if we didn't, we have to right now. We get competitive with each other, especially when we don't all have the funding that we need for all the things we want to do. Right now, though, I have to say I'm really proud of the community. They're coming together under the Save HIV funding campaign. Over 100 organizations have signed on. And we're getting on the phone every week to update each other, share where things are at, making sure that we're all informed at the moment. And I have to say, it's a real moment for us to come together, and I do think people are heeding that call right now.
The same struggle, same fight. We have to lock arms.
It's interesting to hear these false divisions, within the queer community getting sort of exacerbated. And, I'm in a serodiscordant, interracial, homosexual relationship. So at the end of the day, sure, I'm cisgender, so I don't feel immediately on the menu, but I'm right there on the next page. The moment that they can derive power from coming after me and my relationship, they're going to do it.
Do you arrange for people to go out and speak in schools? Like, I would have invited you to come and speak to my class. I mean, I might not have gotten you, but would I have gotten someone?
We don't have a speakers bureau yet or anything like that, but that's a great idea and something that we need to do more of.
Uh-oh.
I know. See, now you're giving me more work,
no, but
but
I'm just saying.
I'm a fan of it. There's something particularly powerful about getting face-to-face with people and sharing your experience.
Yes.
And that connection, particularly in a post-COVID world where there's a lot of loneliness, I think it means even more.
How do you do with a group who I think would do tremendous outreach, people who are in recovery from drugs and alcohol?
So I actually am a member of a 12-step program myself. I've been in recovery for a great many years. Given how certain members of the administration are very openly also part of that community and making some very wrong decisions, there's also an importance to remember that we need science, we need an evidence base, and we need that passion and that spiritual connection. That's important, but make sure that we stay grounded in reality.
I mean, I can laugh at like the cartoonish character of the people who are running the show, right? Because they're like a comic strip. You couldn't make it up.
It's reality television every day.
Even, the Bush father, son, they were pretty good on this stuff, right?
George W. Bush, launched the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, the largest, international investment in HIV/AIDS, which is what this administration is presently trying to dismantle.
That is one of the most heartbreaking things, that we are literally killing people. We are literally letting people die.
So the international estimates of the impact is in the millions, of people who will die because of this.
And that'll reach here too, by the way.
And there was an estimate out of Penn, for the Senate version of the big betrayal of a bill, and they estimated that 51,000 Americans will die. And literally that bill is it serves only to give tax cuts to the rich with a few, miscellaneous things attached for others. It really feels like a country that has lost its sense of purpose at this moment. Well, this is where advocacy is essential, because we're seeing right now that at the end of the day, capitalists will choose to mitigate their risk. And if they feel that the tide is turning toward an administration that is going to throw the rest of us under the bus, we can't count on them. We have to go out there. And a lot of that's going to be volunteer work.
Yes.
And a lot of that is going to be driven just purely by passion. And it's going to involve people working too hard for too many hours. But that's what you have to do to tip the scales. And that's why we get up every day.
The issues that we're talking about, but including the international horror, is a huge issue for me. And the other thing is people wearing masks and taking people off the street. And if you don't think that they're going to find out who has HIV and start doing it, I mean, it's curtains for all of us. It's really like same struggle, same fight, right?
If we lose certain baseline principles, of protection, right now, I'm not seeing HIV advocates being, sort of hauled off to a Louisiana prison, But when I see someone from another movement that's experiencing that, I know that you lose that foundation.
Yes.
That foundation of rights. And then it's the Wild West.
Yes.
There's a reason why we have laws and policies. It's to create a fair playground for all of us in a society where we disagree with each other.
Right. It's like best efforts. We have a
Yes.
best efforts, and it's, has to be felt by people.
Yes.
And we're kind of, we have to fight against losing that.
Right.
That's what's so frightening, is that, we cannot let cowardice be catching, and make sure that people know that bravery feels good.
Yeah.
And you have a great community with your brave friends and some joy.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're in the trenches, hopefully you're finding that community and that camaraderie. And then, recognizing that you're contributing to something that is greater than any of us, and that's the type of movement that we're trying to build right now. That's what we're calling together people for, because individually, who knows what's going to be what breaks through at this moment, but we've got to keep fighting, because if we lose it, then it's gone.
I want to thank you for giving me any time at all.
Oh,
No, I mean, seriously, because
appreciate
you're doing important work. I'm not sure they're reaching the millions and millions of people that we need to reach. I
Sure.
want you to go through the organizations that you're involved with.
Well, we're going to start with Prep for All, Prep
That's for
with the number 4. So PREP, the number 4, ALL.org.
I love that.
It's a great organization. We're small but mighty. Check out our website. And there's a donate button there, and we greatly welcome that. We can't do all of the work. We actually don't take corporate funding as an organization, but we believe that it allows us to be strategic and independent in a slightly different way. And then there's the SaveHIVfunding.org campaign. We're fortunate to get some foundation funding right now, but really, if you want to get involved or want to help support us, you can email us there, sign up for that. Email me directly at Jeremiah at prepforall.org, and happy to get you plugged in there.
Oh my gosh, Jeremiah, I cannot tell you how excited I am that you agreed to come here today. But we're recruiting to fight, to fight. Thank you. See you next week. I want to talk about distractions. Now, I am a person who is easily distracted. It's just a part of who I am. However, it's very important that there be focus, because we are going to try to change the world and to make a better world. However, everyone gets distracted. Let me give you an example of how someone easily distracts us. On a Friday, Trump will say, oh, maybe I'll raise taxes on rich people. Well, that's not true, but it's going to be covered all weekend long. Don't pay any attention to that. It's a distraction. Keep your eye on, let's stop throwing people out of the country without due process. Let's stop stripping rights away from people of color, from the LGBT community. Let's not let them use the trans community to make a break within our queer community. I mean, a distraction. Hey, thank you, recruits, for joining me and my guests today. And I want to thank Manhattan Neighborhood Network, MNN. They film us, they produce us, they light us. Look how good I look. Well, they make everyone look good, and they bring a lot of voices to the table, so let's support them. Now, as we discussed today, there are many ways to be of service to our communities. And by communities, I mean all the communities that are intersecting in this great city. We have each other, and we have the wisdom of generations before us who have fought to make the world a safer, more just place. And I hope you won't forget that you have your own part to do that, to make this a better place to live, to work, to survive, and thrive. And we'll see you next week. This has been The Recruiters, and you have been recruited. Thank you.